Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome if this is your first time here. Today we're going to go over 3 players that I've been asked about a lot and really kind of wanted to dive into the numbers of should we be panicking on these players or should we kind of trust the process and hold them and assume that better days are yet to come. So let's jump on into it. The first player I hear a lot about is the 2024 wide receiver 1 in the rookie drafts, Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he has the name, the pedigree. He dominated in college. Everyone was so excited for him coming in. And then also getting paired with Kyler Murray in that Arizona Cardinals offense. He looked like it was like, a match made in heaven. It looked like that offense was really going to take off. So what happened? Is this a player that we need to panic on, or do we need to pump the brakes? In the past 4 weeks, he's posted target shares of 21%, 15%, 29%, and 23%. He's also scored in PPR formats 16 points, 7 points, 17 points, and 8.9 points. So while his scoring production is certainly not what we want, especially from a high-end asset, his target shares are there, so he's very involved in the offense. My main thought and main concern is him and Kyler just sometimes seem off and sometimes seem on. And it really comes down to, is Marvin Harrison catching those contested catches in the end zone or getting open? That's the only time I really see, I'm like, oh, now it's in the red zone. Marvin Harrison Jr. might get a target. But I don't see him kind of getting those easy catches that you often see, like Jamar Chase or CeeDee Lamb, where they start to work him into the offense. They don't really give that to Marvin Harrison Jr. currently. If I have Marvin Harrison Jr. on my roster, I currently would say hold. A big hold. I would lean slightly sell, and I'll explain why in a bit. But with Marvin Harrison Jr., he's had a pretty good rookie year. The fantasy and especially Dynasty community have crazy expectations for rookies coming in. We want that Puka Nacua season. We want that even Malik Neighbors season. But Malik Neighbors has almost no target competition. He's posting 30, 40% target share in a bad offense. That's not really sustainable unless if he is like the next Jamar Chase. The big thing eating into his target share is Trey McBride. Trey McBride is clearly Kyler Murray's, old reliable, his safety blanket. And that's not a bad thing, but it's also something that we do need to consider is that a lot of these other wide receivers don't have established connections like Trey McBride that they're working with. I also do think, that Cardinals offense does look pretty immature sometimes. There's some, sometimes it's really clicking, and then other games it just comes out flat and never really rebounds. To me, I'm looking to hold him, but there are some options I would want to sell him. And why do I say that? It's because he has that name. He's still viewed as a top asset, even though he's not, top 5 or whatever, wherever he was at his peak. He's still viewed as a high-end asset that you can use to get a lot of valuable trades. For example, Marvin Harrison Jr. in a 3rd-round pick for Nico Collins. Nico Collins, clear wide receiver 1, tied to CJ Stroud. I mean, there's not much to say here. If I can get a deal like this, I would. Otherwise, I'm just holding. If I can toss a little piece on top and get a Nico Collins, that's a perfect deal for me. Here's another example. We have Marvin Harrison Jr. in a 2nd-round pick for A.J. Brown in a 3rd. Again, you do lose a little bit of that age premium going to A.J. Brown, but A.J. Brown, that being said, we don't really know what's going on with him and Hurts, but in general, A.J. Brown is a locked-in stud, and even if he goes somewhere else, I'm not concerned about A.J. Brown's production. Marvin Harrison Jr., the name alone still gets you in that conversation of A.J. Brown, of Nico Collins. Here's another example, right? Now we're really getting out there with the age premium, but going from Marvin Harrison Jr. in a 2nd-round pick to 2 1st-round picks, one in 25 and 27, and Tyreek Hill. I mean, this is just one of those deals that you have to take in most cases. It is a little bit of a shallower league, 2 QB, 10 team, start 10, full PPR, but still, if you're getting that much back and you're getting a Tyreek Hill, I mean, those are the deals that Marvin Harrison Jr. does unlock. So unless if you can get deals like that, I'm not looking to move them. And this is the last one we'll take a look at. We got Puka Nacua in a 2nd-round pick for Marv in the 1st. Obviously, I assume that's not an early 1st, but Puka Nacua does look like he is in that top tier when healthy. I'm absolutely taking a deal like this. This is an amazing return. And again, this is why Marvin Harrison Jr. opens up more options than just saying, oh, I'm just going to tear down off of him. I think he has the flexibility of going up and getting a top asset without producing really like a top asset yet. if you can't get a deal like this, he is young. He's still elite, tied to Kyler Murray. I'm not concerned about him going into next year. We've seen players break out in year 2 and year 3. Just look at Nico Collins. Look at JSN this year. There's always going to be breakouts. Sometimes, I know people don't want me to say it, sometimes we need to be patient. Next up is Mr. Boom Bust himself, the second-year wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed is someone that, to me, when I see him have the ball in his hands, he's electric, exciting, incredible athlete, and really complements that offense well. But I'll tell you one thing: it feels like riding Gabe Davis on the Bills, right? It feels like one week it's 20-something points, and the next week he doesn't even. He's just out there doing cardio. So we need to figure out what the hell's going on when it comes to Jayden Reed. Is this someone that we can count on or not? In the past 4 weeks, Jayden Reed has posted target shares of 13%, 14%, 23%, and 6%. Those correspond with 19.8 fantasy points, 5.6 fantasy points, 19.7 fantasy points, and the lovely 0 fantasy points. This season, he's had a target per route run rate of 19.6%, which is pretty solid. Overall, not incredible, right? Obviously, some of his percentages have dropped down some. Something to consider, though, is the Packers' offense has changed a lot throughout the season. Earlier in the season, they were averaging 30 passing plays a game, a very high volume passing offense. The past 4 weeks, we've seen 17 passing plays, 23 passing plays, 28 passing plays, and 20 passing plays. And just like James Harden, Kyrie, and Durant on the Nets, the ball, there's only one ball. The fact that Jayden Reed might just not be part of the game plan some weeks is something that we have to live with, at least this year. And that's kind of the hard part about the Green Bay Packers, is they have 3 to 4 solid wide receiver options, and that's not even including Tucker Kraft, who's frankly been the best receiving target the past couple weeks. So it's kind of just a game of roulette. It's like, do I get lucky? Am I hitting on the right one? The biggest thing for Jayden Reed, and why I will say Jayden Reed is probably a sell, is he's the most expensive passing option according to Keep Trade Cut. Why would I have a Jayden Reed when Dobbs might be the guy, Watson might be the guy, Kraft might be the guy? I mean, hell, Bo Melton. Not really. Bo Melton's not really the guy, but there's so many options out there on that offense that it's hard for me to really feel confident paying up to get that Jayden Reed, when the reality is, if I could also just get Dobbs, I'm riding the same odds. So that's kind of the hard part with him. I do think Jayden Reed has the youth upside. People get excited for him. I will say, I don't mind holding him. I think he's kind of like similar to Marvin Harrison Jr., where his name does hold some value, but it's kind of like the tier below. Ultimately, I would definitely be trying to look to move him, just because riding him, when you have to start him every week and you're like, maybe he gets one target, that's stressful. That's not something I want. I want the consistency of a player, even if it's like someone like a Jacoby Myers. It's like, I know he's going to get those targets, and that's important to me when I have to actually start players. I think Jayden Reed is a great player to sell in the offseason, since no one is starting lineups and people are going to be like, oh, Jayden Reed, wide receiver 1 for the Packers. Sure, some weeks aren't great, but he does have the big boom upside. It's a lot different when you actually have to start him and you're like, well, I'm just riding or dying with this player. Let's take a look at 2 trades I have just to kind of explain examples of really what I'm trying to do with Jayden Reeds I have on my rosters. This first one's a simple one. Jayden Reed for a first. I mean, I'll take it, right? Give me the flexibility. Jayden Reed does have some name and some hype to him, but if I can get off the ride, you'll see this in a lot of my videos. If I can get off the ride for one first, I will. That's a win to me. This one's another great example. It's kind of a tier down, but Jayden Reed's a perfect type of player to tier down to a Jordan Addison, who is somewhat similar. Sometimes Jordan Addison doesn't have big weeks, and then other times he has huge weeks. And that's kind of, to me, like, why not just get a cheaper one? You could get a Juwan Jennings thrown in, who's also been pretty good this year, and probably a better playoff option than Jayden Reed at this point. I think he's one of those perfect assets where the dynasty value hasn't caught up with the actual production and the real world startability of this player. It's hard to lock in Jayden Reed every week. So if I can cash him out and get Jordan Addison in a second, even Juwan Jennings in a second, Jacoby Myers in a second, someone that I'm like, okay, cool. At least I'm not sitting there with this asset that has a lot of dynasty value that doesn't really correspond to the actual production he's giving me. Let's take a look at Atlanta Falcons superstar tight end. I say superstar in quotes. Kyle Pitts, obviously This player is someone that I feel like I hear every year in the offseason. People are like, okay, but hear me out. Let me give you a shot. Here's all the stuff to prove that he's not that good, but trust me, he is. And that's kind of what I see with Kyle Pitts. He's a Justin Fields of tight ends. People just want to believe in the talent, want to believe that he'll figure it out. But I think at this point, the ship is starting to sail, and we need to adjust our process to not get caught up in the hype. In the past 4 weeks, Kyle Pitts posted target shares of 15%, 11%, 6%, 17%. Those correspond to 9.5 fantasy points, 1.9, 0, and 2.4. He also has a target per route run rate of 16% this season. Honestly, I think Kyle Pitts is a perfect panic sell. I really just don't want to deal with him, especially if your format isn't super boosted in tight ends. If you have a very strong tight end premium where tight ends do have additional value, or you have to start multiple tight ends, sure, you might want to address that differently. But in a standard league, or even a league with a slight tight end premium, I don't really care. I don't want to have Kyle Pitts holding me down. And there's still some hope. There's still some hope. There's people that will bite. Trust me, there's people out there that will believe anything. So you can still dump Kyle Pitts on someone, and someone will say, maybe things will change. We've seen this offense. We've made excuses for it. Oh, it's Arthur Smith. Oh, it's, no quarterback play. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. I think it's now getting to the point where, it's Kyle Pitts. It's over in terms of him being that top end tight end. He could come back around. He could kind of have that Evan Ingram, Njoku late career resurgence, but I'm not going to invest in him as a top 6, top 8 tight end. It's just not worth it to me. Let me fade that position if I get in the range where Kyle Pitts is the best option I have. Let's look at some trades just to kind of show you what I mean. Kyle Pitts straight up for David Njoku. See ya. We take that, especially in the tight end boosted premium. That's going to be a huge bump. I don't really care about the age premium. I just want to say, are you scoring for me now? That's what I want. Kyle Pitts is not in the same range of David Njoku, so I definitely want the Njoku side here. Next up, we have Kyle Pitts in the second for David Montgomery. Sure, it is boosted tight end premium, but still, David Montgomery is easily one of the best bargains. I don't know where he's currently stands, but he is a locked-in RB1 in that Detroit offense. So easy decision here for Kyle Pitts. And lastly, I'll just put Jonnu Smith. I think Jonnu Smith is low-key a decent option here. You could probably get a plus, but this trade is just Jonnu Smith straight up for Kyle Pitts. Again, Jonnu Smith is someone that's 2-year contract in Miami. I assume Miami's not getting rid of their coach. I expect him to continue to be a somewhat startable option, especially when compared to Kyle Pitts, who is just not been it. Let me get some value for him. That wraps up this video. Again, thank you for sticking through it all, and I hope you found some things useful. If you agree or disagree, definitely leave comments below. Again, like, comment, subscribe, all the jargon. Also, if there's players you want me to talk about next, I think I might start doing more formats like this, kind of diving into players, giving my thoughts, going over some trades. If there's any players you'd like me to talk about, also leave a comment below on that, and I will see you next time.